we actually have been underweight the energy space, and we think there's some short and long-term dynamics I think that are pretty interesting. I think over the short term we could see a rebound in energy from these levels at some point, but you have to remember that at the end of the day we're really talking about 1.5 million to 2 million barrels of excess capacity that the market is kind of trying to digest on a daily basis. And I think if you think about some of the issues that could change that, there are several. One of them is we know there is abundant capital. And in the U.S., people are raising funds actually as we speak to try and take advantage of buying assets out of some of these exploration and production companies at current levels that can still drive returns on capital close to 20% plus, despite WTI being where it is today. And I think that signifies the fact that if in fact we had a prolonged period of a higher oil price, I think you would have a strong supply response coming from the U.S. market, and many of those wells can come back online in relatively short order. But I think over the medium term, I think what investors need to think about in energy is how can the price deck change meaningfully over the next 10 years? And we think there's three real reasons to have some serious consideration of that. One is, as I articulated earlier, we think demographics play a large role. As that aging baby boomer comes over the crest and they change their lifestyle, they are consuming less energy, and this is happening in many parts around the G7. Secondarily, there are new technologies, so things like electric cars. Tesla obviously has had a splash over the last few years, but I think what Tesla signifies is the fact that we had a strong price of oil, the market gave a price signal, and competing technologies are starting to be developed. And the Model S was the first foray into producing a credible car in electrification, but the reality is, given the market shares they generated over the last 12 months in the US and in other global markets, they have now signified to the world that electrification needs to be addressed. And you have companies like BMW and Mercedes and Honda and GM all really investing behind electrification. And if you look forward 10 years, what's interesting to us is there'll be enough cumulative plug-in electric vehicles and electric vehicles on the road to displace the same amount of volume that we're talking about in the market today as causing this great imbalance. And finally, I think there's other technologies that are coming, like solar, like wind, and ultimately, hopefully, we can store some of that energy to make them even more effective. But there is a pathway to displacing greater than 6 or 8 million barrels by the next decade through these new technologies. So we think over the long term, the power of demographics and new technologies will actually dent global demand for oil, and you'll start to see that really coming through the middle part of next decade, which we think will be really powerful and keep a lid on prices over time.